Hello and welcome to Jays Uncaged, the show where we talk all things Blue Jays baseball. Spring training is now in full swing, and we've got a lot of things to cover, so let's just get right into it. Obviously, the main talking point coming into this Blue Jays camp was the contract situation of Vlad Guerrero Jr. So we're always going to touch on that a little bit, but we're also going to be talking about the players that we want to watch in this spring training and the expectations that the Blue Jays can have for this season. We're going to start off this episode by talking about the Vlad contract because I just kind of want to get it out of the way because there have been so many headlines, so many news stories about this already that I don't think I really have anything new to add about it. It's disappointing that the Jays couldn't sign him before his deadline came and went by. But, now we have to play this season with this hanging over us for the whole year. Vlad made this deadline so that there wouldn't be this distraction for him going over the season. But I feel like now, since he didn't sign a contract and is not negotiating, there's only going to be more talk about this. He's already been talking about how he's willing to listen to every single team this offseason, including the Yankees, who previously he said he would never play for. Now he's openly saying to the media that he is willing to negotiate with the Yankees. I just don't feel like this is creating a good atmosphere for the team. Some of the other players have come out and said that they support him. They're not going to let this become a distraction for them. But honestly, there's no way that it can't be a distraction. I think there's blame to go on both sides for this. Vlad, this deadline, in theory, was a good idea to not create distractions, but now with how much he's been talking to the media about it, I think there's just more distraction than if he had just kept silent. And then obviously on the management side, it created a bad precedent when they went out and offered Ohtani last year $700+ million. This past season they offered Soto $700+ million. Didn't get either of them. And now we don't know exactly the numbers that Vlad is looking for and what the Blue Jays offered him, but it sounds like there seems to be a pretty sizable gap in between the two numbers that each camp has. So let's just say Vlad wants $500 million or something like that, and the Jays are coming in around $400. If there's like a $100 million gap there, then obviously I can see why Vlad wouldn't have signed a contract with them. But why are the Jays not willing to pay that extra money to keep a homegrown talent? We don't have a lot of those guys. I don't know if he's a generational player. He's a first baseman, a right-handed first baseman. There's a lot of those out there, a lot of them that can hit for power. But he's still only 25 years old. And, he's coming off a really good season where he was basically the only player who made the Jays worth watching. And now, we're just going to let him go for nothing? I don't know. I could see a world where we end up trading him before the deadline this year if the team isn't playing well. But that's obviously not ideal because we trade him. What does this team look like? Are we going to keep Bo Bichette? I don't know. They kind of always seem like a bit of a package deal. Bo has had his struggles as well. Do we trade both of them here at the deadline and just do a full rebuild? It feels like a wasted era of Jays baseball if we don't have any success with those two. It really sucks losing two young players like that who have star potential, but just couldn't make it work here in Toronto. It's a pretty fluid situation, it seems, where if the Jays are doing really well, it might influence us in signing Bo. But if Vlad is not willing to sign a contract until the offseason, we got to compete with 29 other teams who are obviously going to offer him the money that he wants. I don't know. I don't want to lose him for nothing. So it could come to a point where we just trade him, get a haul of young players, and just retool. I don't know. I don't see a situation where we can still be good and lose Vlad. Let's move now away from some of the doom and gloom of contract negotiations and talk about some of the players who are signed to be here and want to be here. So first up, this spring training, I think one player that we really need to keep a close eye on is Orelvis Martinez. He's a 23-year-old power hitter. He has shown a lot of power in AAA last season, and then was called up and played one game for the Jays last season before he was unfortunately suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. I think he has some work to do this spring training to build back some of the trust that he might have lost because of his use of some of the PEDs. But he's played in 2 games so far this spring training, and he's gone 2 for 4. He hit a big home run in the very first game against the Yankees. And I think this is the year where he really needs to take a step and become at least a rotational lineup player. Our DH spot is wide open, and I think he could be a good fit there. He's not a good defensive player, so I don't really want to see him at third base or wherever else he'd slide in. So I think DH could be a good spot for him. I think he needs to keep playing like this in the preseason, and he'd have a very good chance of making the opening day roster. Another player I obviously want to keep an eye on is Anthony Santander. He was our big off-season signing. We signed him to a 5-year, $92.5 million contract. He's coming off his best season of his career, hitting at .235 average with 44 home runs and 102 RBIs. I'm not sure what we can expect from this. I wasn't huge on the signing. I think there's obviously potential for him to be a good fit here, but I don't know if he can replicate those numbers that he had last year. And also, I'm a little concerned about his batting average and his on-base percentage. A .235 batting average is not very good, but when you hit 44 home runs, it makes it look a lot better. But if he can't get back up to those numbers and he's still batting around that same average, it's not going to be a very good signing. So I think for this to be a successful signing, he needs to hit at least 35 home runs this year and keep his RBIs around that number. He's probably going to be hitting after Bo and Vlad, so hopefully there'll be a lot of opportunities for RBIs. But yeah, he's already 30 years old. He's a bit older than Vlad and Bo. And if they leave in this offseason, then we're going to be left paying Santander for the next 4 years on a team that probably won't be very good. Next up, I want to talk about Jake Bloss. Jake Bloss is a 23-year-old pitcher who we acquired last year from the Astros in the Yusei Kikuchi deal. Last year, he played very well when he was with the Astros. He didn't get much of a chance here yet, but I think he has a chance this season to fill in when injuries arise. And if he can turn into an everyday starter, that would be fantastic. We have an aging roster. I don't expect Chris Bassett to be back after this season. So, if he could get some starts this season and then move into the starting rotation next year, I think that would be great. He played in 1 game so far this spring training. He pitched 1.2 innings versus the Red Sox, and he didn't do that well. He gave up 2 hits and 2 runs. It's spring training. I don't know how much stock we can really take in that one small performance, but we'll get the chance to see him again on Friday against the Yankees. He'll be the starting pitcher. So I really want to see a little bit of improvement from him. I think he's probably our top pitching prospect right now for this season since Tiedeman's out for the year. So yeah, he needs to kind of look like how he did with the Astros last season, and it'll make me feel a lot better about this starting rotation, even though he probably won't be in it. But I just know with how old it is, Bassett and Scherzer, one of them will probably miss some time this season, and, we need someone who can fill in. I also want to talk a little bit about Ryan Yarbrough, who we just re-signed last week. He's a lefty bullpen arm who played incredibly well last season. I don't think he's going to be able to recreate the season that he had last year, but he's an interesting arm for us. We were lacking left-handers in the bullpen, so he obviously fills that role very well. And there's a lot of spots that he could kind of slot in. He could fit in the long relief role, which Rodriguez is currently in. But if we need a lefty to go long, that would be ideal. And he can also just come in as a short relief pitcher. It's kind of what he did last season. So I think this is a really good signing for us. And the fact that he can slot in so many places and he's a left-hander, I think it's a great look for the Blue Jays. And hopefully he can come at least close to what he did last season. Finally, I want to talk about Max Scherzer. This is kind of an exciting signing. It would have been nice if we could have gotten him maybe 10 years ago, but 40-year-old Max Scherzer is still a really good pitcher. He's been dealing with injuries these past 2 years, and, he hasn't really proven yet that he can stay healthy. But, it's worth a shot. If we kind of want to call this an all-in year with the fact that we might be losing a lot of our core next season, why not go out and get a guy who can probably give you one last good year before he retires? So I'm really excited to see what he has in the tank. He's projected to pitch tomorrow against the Cardinals, splitting time with Bowden Francis. So, yeah, this spring training, I just kind of want to see what he has left, what he can offer the Blue Jays this year, and I really just want to see him stay healthy through all this. If he picks up an injury, it'll probably kind of just be a sign of things to come for this season. All right, before we wrap up this episode, I kind of just want to talk about my expectations for the Blue Jays this year. Usually you have a pretty good idea of what a team's going to offer you in the season, but I actually have no idea what this Blue Jays team can be. I don't think they're a championship contender, especially with, we got the Dodgers and the Mets who loaded up these past couple years. We still have a very tough division with the Rays always doing well. The Yankees are going to do well. But I think we can compete for a wild card spot if everything plays out as well as it can. There's a lot of questions. If Vladdy plays well, if Bo plays well, if George Springer has a bounce-back year, if we have some consistency in the starting rotation, if we can rely on our bullpen, there's a lot of questions, a lot of things can go wrong, but I think they have the potential to be a wild card team. But on the other hand, I think they also have the potential to possibly be at the bottom of the AL East this year. If things don't play out well and then we're at the bottom come the end of July, I could see us trading away a lot of our players. We have a lot of expiring contracts. So, it's an interesting year. There's a lot that can change in the course of the spring training even. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to see how these players play, if they can improve upon last season. Last season was a disappointment, but I know the potential that these players have. I know what they can do. So it's just a matter of them actually going out there, staying healthy, and playing good Blue Jays baseball. That's going to do it for this episode of Jays Uncaged. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning into this inaugural episode. I'm not a natural when it comes to talking like this for an extended time, so please bear with me while I try to improve over the next few episodes. This will be a weekly show, so you can look forward to another episode next week. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and go Jays.